Perfect. So, welcome along to another edition of Isolation Interviews for Hospital Radio Reading. And I am super excited that my guest today is a broadcasting legend in the form of Mr. Ken Bruce. How are you, Ken? Welcome.
Thank you very much, Matthew. I'm absolutely fine. Lovely to be here.
I mean, you've had a bit of a sort of a past with Reading, which I wanted to mention because obviously Hospital Radio Reading, it's so important. For you, where did the love of radio start? Was it Hospital Radio for yourself?
Well, it was a little before I joined hospital radio. I was really interested in radio as a teenager. I suddenly started, well, I wasn't always listening to the radio, it was always on, but I suddenly started paying more attention to it when I was at, I don't know, about 15 or something like that. And I started thinking, well, that's an interesting kind of job. I mean, at the time, there was really hardly any pop radio. The BBC had a monopoly on radio in this country. I mean, you could hear Radio Luxembourg, and just in the middle of the 60s, pirate radio started with, there was a Radio Scotland from a ship just off the east coast of Scotland. But I wanted to know all about radio, and eventually I got into hospital radio because I thought I'd like a job in radio. How do I get a job? And they said, well, learn how to do it and go to hospital radio. You'll learn how to do it, but you'll have fun as well, and you'll be doing some good along the way. So I went to hospital radio and thoroughly enjoyed it.
I mean, which station were you based at, and sort of what was it that you loved about the hospital radio experience? How have you what have you brought from that going forward?
Well, I went to HBS Glasgow, the Hospital Broadcasting Service for Glasgow and the west of Scotland, to give it its full title. It was a service operated from studios in an office block in Glasgow to varying number of hospitals, 6 or 7, got up to about 12 or 13 at one point. Mostly long stay hospitals, geriatric hospitals, things like that. But it was quite a networked service. So that was a good experience because you learned immediately that you weren't just speaking to half a dozen people in one ward. You were speaking to people in different situations and having different things wrong with them and having different life experiences. So that was a good thing to learn from my point of view. It was a very well run station. A man called Eric Simpson was in charge of it, and he was utterly professional and quite a tough boss. He was very nice, very charming, but if somebody didn't quite come up to scratch or they weren't obeying the rules, he had no compunction at all about taking them off air and giving them, quite serious feedback. So it's a really great learning environment. And I went on and I did a bit of work on a Sunday night program because I had a full-time job, obviously. I had so many people. And I did a Sunday night program called The Open Line, which was a request show. And that taught me quite a lot because it taught me that you don't go on any radio station, particularly not a hospital radio station, and play the music you like. What you do is you play the music your audience likes and wants. And that is a lesson that I've kept with me all the way through my career. It's important to listen to what your audience want. It's all very well for you to say, I love this record, but if you're the only one that loves it, there's no point in playing it. So I learned so much there, made quite a lot of mistakes, most of which I made in professional life afterwards again, but at least I knew how to get out of them by that time. So it was a really great learning experience, and it was good fun. I mean, it was great fun. Lots of great people there, everybody enthusiastic. And as I say, you were actually doing some good because I do know that when you talk to people in hospital who have listened to hospital radio, they really get something from it. They do get a very personal experience of communication from the hospital radio service. So that was a very steep learning curve and a very good learning curve for me. And as I say, the lessons I learned there have stayed with me right through.
I mean, one great thing about hospital radio, and I don't think any other kind of broadcast medium really gets to do it to the extent that hospital radio does, is that you get to properly go and meet your audience. Whereas, if you're on, an international, national station, you can't really go out and meet all your listeners one by one. So it's nice that you can really get to know the people that are listening to you.
Yes, you absolutely do. You go out, you meet the people who are listening to you. So you get a very direct response as to what you're doing, whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing, and what the likes and dislikes of your audience are. And you're quite right. In a national station, and even some local stations, it's really very difficult to get to speak to your audience. That's why you have to be even more sensitive to what your audience are feeding back to you, even though it may just be the odd email, the odd text or something. You have to, if somebody says, I don't like this, I don't like that, I do like this, you have to take it on board. You don't have to necessarily believe everything that comes in, but you have to have a listen to it. If somebody says, I don't like this thing that happened on the show today, you have to analyze it and say, did this happen? Yes. Was it right? Are they being too sensitive? Are they correct in what they're saying? You have to just analyze it and assess whether there is something to learn from it. And I think as long as you keep doing that, you can stay close to your audience when you're doing some kind of national broadcast. But you're absolutely right. Talking to your audience is nothing like meeting people face to face and hearing what they have to say to getting what your product is absolutely right.
And I mean, you've recently returned to hospital radio. You did a special show, which a lot of stations have broadcast recently. What was that like to kind of get back to basics and kind of sort of go back to where you started?
I was really educational, actually, because, you can lose touch, you can forget what things are like. And to go back to a really well-run hospital radio station, which was Stoke Mandeville we went to. It's one of many, many really well-run hospital radio stations, but they know what they're doing. And to go back there and see the professionalism and the care that they put into the work that they do and the importance that it has for the people who are working there. I spoke to several of the people who actually work in the NHS at the hospital, and they appreciate what the hospital radio station does as much as the patients do. So I think it was a really good thing for me to go back and just see just how important hospital radio still is. And I remember, I'm old enough to remember, back in the 80s, people were saying, well, hospital television is going to be the big thing. Hospital radio will die. Nobody will want it. Nobody, there'll be dedicated hospital television services. Even then, most of the wards have got televisions in. You can be coming to the bedside. People will want to see television rather than listen to the radio. But they still want to listen to the radio. Even not in hospital, but everywhere. Radio is still a thing. It's still important. There's still a peculiar type of special communication that happens between a radio presenter and the radio presenter's audience that, television, other forms, podcasts can't really quite match. So radio I've been told it's been going to die for years and years and years, and it never has yet. And I think hospital radio is exactly the same. It's still necessary, it's still important, and still doing a great job.
Now, obviously, you've had the pleasure of doing radio, the thing you love for such a long period of time. And for you, does the kind of love of radio ever disappear, or does it keep getting bigger and better? And sort of, how does that for you?
From my point of view, I mean, I still love doing radio, and I think where I was, it was at the BBC before, and I was there for a long, long time. And I never fell out of love with doing radio, but I started to think, well, I've been doing exactly the same thing for quite a long time. It is time for a change, try something new. And I've been lucky enough to be still able to do it, to be asked to, go somewhere and do other jobs. And I know it's not the case for everybody, but I've been very lucky. And it is luck because there's lots and lots of good broadcasters around. It just depends, as so often in any career, being the right place at the right time. And so I never fell out of love with radio at all. I just felt, no, it's time to do something just slightly different. Just try something in a different area, different place, and see if you can do that. And I feel kind of re-energized by coming to Greatest Hits Radio and the Bauer setup. It's brilliant, and I've been made very welcome, and I'm really enjoying it. So it's been win-win.
I mean, when you make a decision to leave, when you left Radio 2, there must be nerves because you don't know what's going to happen next. So, I mean, for you, kind of, how did you get over that? And I imagine it was quite a quick turnaround between obviously leaving Radio 2 and going to Greatest Hits. So was that kind of always there as a sort of safety net?
Yeah, well, I'm so used to daily broadcasting. I've been on the radio 5 days a week since 1977. So I've never had more than a couple of weeks off or anything like that. So it's been something I just want to do. I feel I am naturally attuned to doing daily radio. So I stopped doing daily radio on the BBC, and then I immediately went into Greatest Hits Radio, started doing daily radio there. So it's something I really feel comfortable doing. I really enjoy doing. So there wasn't a huge culture shock. I was still talking to, I felt, many of the same people that I had been talking to. So it was really one of the easiest transitions of all. I settled in from day one. As soon as I got used to the new playout system, it was fairly straightforward. And I've only, I think, since I started at Greatest Hits Radio, it's been 6 months now. I've only referenced my old employer on air accidentally once, so I think that's quite good.
And I mean, the other great thing is that you got to take PopMaster with you. Was that important to you? I mean, for to have been a part of PopMaster and had that with you by your side, was there any worry of losing that, or was that always going to be with you?
No, it had been with me since well, the early 2000s. I had trademarked it, and so PopMaster was always coming with me if ever I decided to leave. If I decided to give up entirely and PopMaster was to carry on with me, it would be without me, rather. It would be with my approval. So they couldn't do PopMaster without me if I didn't want them to. So yeah, I had that always under my control. So taking it with me was not a problem, and that was always accepted by Radio 2 and the BBC that it would be with me always. So that wasn't a problem, but it was important for me to take it with me because I felt it was my calling card, if you like. It was the thing that people most associated with me. And so it was something I just thought it was natural to keep doing it because it was still working. If it ever stops working, we'll stop doing it. But at the moment, people seem still to enjoy it very much.
I mean, it has such a huge following, and it's kind of in a nice way, it's a beast amongst itself. Did you ever know or ever realize how popular it would be?
I did not. No, I didn't appreciate how popular it was. It was. We were always aware that it was doing well. It was popular to an extent. I think what really made the difference was lockdown. I think a lot of people discovered PopMaster. It was an important signpost in their day, and they looked forward to each new edition. And it became a sort of highlight of the day when people were stuck at home, not able to get out and about. And I think it really kind of took off then. So I certainly noticed a difference in people's attitude towards it, and people really appreciating it very much at that time. So yeah, that was a big moment. But I think it had been slowly just becoming more and more part of people's lives over the years since it began, which was over 25 years ago. So it's been a long, slow progress, but it does seem to be doing quite well just now.
And I think a great idea, obviously, putting it on the TV as well, because we had the PopMaster TV series. Would you like to do more of that? Because I thoroughly loved it.
Well, we were very, very pleased, very lucky with that, because Channel 4 came to us and said, we would like to do this. Would you? And we said, well, yeah, we've been trying to do this for some time. So we had a kind of meeting of minds there. We were put in touch with an excellent production company, and that's 12 Yard, who really, really threw everything into it, but were very sensitive about what the original PopMaster was. They took great care to make sure that the TV version was recognizably related to the radio version. And we were across it at all times. We were consulted all the way through, but they were really fantastic, 12 Yard, a great team there. And they put the whole thing together and made a really good show. We tried a couple of rounds that didn't quite work, and so we changed them. So nothing was set in stone. But we think that what we got on air on the first series was really really good and really representative of what PopMaster was. So we were delighted with the way that ended up, the way it appeared, and the way it was received. It was really, really more popular than we were hoping. So, all in all, it's been a terrific thing to have done.
I mean, the great thing as well with the TV series and obviously the radio version is that you get so many different types of people involved of all ages. And I mean, for you, when you're, getting to speak to all these different people and have them on the show, either TV or radio, you must be quite impressed with some of the knowledge that people have, because some people seem to know a lot.
Oh, the knowledge on show is just astonishing. Yeah, especially when you get young players on, as we have on the radio just last week. We had a couple of 20-year-olds, a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old. On the television, we had a couple of 20-year-olds on that show as well. And they know, I mean, you expect people to know music from their own age group. When they were teenagers, they know all that. You don't expect people to know a lot about music from decades before, long before they were born. And that's what we've seen and we've experienced. And it's really fantastic to see. I mean, I've always lost an admiration for those who take part in PopMaster. I wouldn't really do very well on it myself, I don't think. I might get sort of halfway, 5 out of 10 questions right. But these people, they really know a great deal. And the great thing is they're human beings as well. They're not people who are machines. They're not computers who have just learned every fact about pop music. They're enthusiasts. They love the music, and that's the difference, I think, between that and a lot of other kind of quizzing experts. The people who are good at pop music actually love the subject and love the music for itself in its own right. And I'm always just amazed at how much people know. It's really it's quite humbling, really, because I don't know anywhere near that.
Now, obviously, having worked in radio and different types of radio as well, obviously you play so many, new music, classics. But for you, what's the music that really gets you going, really excites you? What are your sort of favorite songs?
Well, I think, as I said before, we all know the music of our teens brilliantly well. That's the music that means a lot to us usually. And then we go on and discover other kinds of music and other forms of music and get enthusiastic about that as well. But the music of my teens was Motown and the Beatles and stuff like that. And I still just love listening to Four Tops, Temptations, the Beatles, the Stones, people from that period. But as you say, quite right, you've got to keep your ears open and listen to music from every decade after that. Most people in their lives have times when they weren't so into music. They were busy, in other things. They weren't so enthusiastic about music. They weren't going out buying records. So there are gaps in most people's knowledge when they were, maybe late 20s and 30s, bringing up families, working very hard, that sort of thing. Didn't have time to get involved in music. And then they come back to it a little bit later and fill in the blanks a bit. But, and that's certainly true of me. But I do like listening to all kinds of music and new music as well. I mean, it's good to keep your ears open. You don't have to like everything, but have a listen to it and say, do I like this? No, I don't. Or yes, I do. And this is really, really well done. So yeah, keep listening to music, keep enjoying it.
And I mean, you've had the pleasure of interviewing some amazing people over your time. Are there any sort of standout interviews for you? People that either you were just, in awe of when you were interviewing them, or interviews that you just sort of felt that this is different. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, I mean, you do lots of interviews, and you mostly you just, it's a job. You do it, and you enjoy meeting the people, but you don't get any special connection. There've been a couple of things that I've really really enjoyed, which was James Taylor in the studio, and he answered a few questions, and he played his guitar, and he actually played "Happy Birthday" to me because it was my birthday, which was lovely. And earlier in my career in Scotland, I was on stage and introducing Ella Fitzgerald, and that was, just a special moment. You think this is a historic thing. Ella Fitzgerald was an older lady by this time, still in great form, still singing wonderfully. And I thought, well, this is something, you will remember all your life. And, I have, absolutely. So, yeah, there are a few standout moments, but there are very, very few moments when I think I don't want to remember this because somebody's not been pleasant or not been engaged in the interview. Very, very few. Most people come in, want to be interviewed nicely, want to do a good job for you, and it's always a pleasure.
Is there a sort of anyone out there that either you haven't had the pleasure to interview, or anyone that's no longer with us that you wish you had had the chance to interview?
I would certainly have loved to have met George Harrison. I never did meet George Harrison. And I think he is, for me, about the most interesting Beatle because we don't know that much about him. We never did. He was the quiet one. And I would have liked to have met him and got to know, maybe try and find out what made him tick and what kind of person he was. I mean, everything I read and hear about him tells me that he was a very kind, gentle, talented person, and that I would have liked to have met him. As it is, I've met Paul McCartney, who's turned out to be lovely and charming, and people like Elton John as well. Again, great fun to be with. So, I've probably fulfilled pretty much every ambition in meeting people, but there's always somebody new around the corner.
And are there any kind of jobs that you've not been able to do that you would love to do? Anything that if the opportunity arose, you would snap it up?
I honestly don't think so. I really think I've done pretty much everything that I wanted to do. I've done, disc jockey shows, as it were. In my early career, I did more current affairs and stuff like that, which was fascinating and interesting. And in later years, I've done orchestral concerts, which I found fantastic fun to do. And just in my last year at the BBC, I was able to take part in some historic broadcasts, the Her Majesty the Queen's funeral. I was involved in the commentary for that. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much left that I haven't done, but I think there's really nothing that I wanted to do that I would still want to do. I think I've done everything I want to do, and I'm still doing the job that I enjoy the most.
And is there any advice you would give your younger self if you were able to go back and speak to him?
Yes, I think I would say, don't worry, it'll be all right. You don't need to worry too much. It's going to turn out all right. In my early years, I was working on short-term contracts for practically all my career, about 40 years, on one-year contracts and maybe 2 years maximum, and not really knowing whether at the end of that I would be still in employment or where I would be employed. So I would just say, don't panic. It's going to be all right. Just enjoy the ride.
And I mean, just before we go, I just wanted to ask, with obviously our amazing NHS and just the amazing hospital staff, is there anything you'd like to say to the people who are working hard behind the lines at the NHS, and to anyone who's currently listening in hospital? Any messages you'd like to say?
Well, to the staff of the NHS, they've helped me out in so many ways over the years. They've looked after my health and kept me going successfully. It's just, without the NHS, this country would be so much poorer. It's just a fantastic organization. And let's hope that it is looked after by those in charge over the next several decades, because we can't afford to lose it. To the staff who are doing a fantastic job, not always thanked, not always appreciated, but we do, I think all of us appreciate what is done. So carry on. We love what you're doing, and please keep doing it. Well, that's it, really. I think hospital radio is doing a great job. And to the people who are listening to hospital radio, I'm sure you are enjoying it and appreciating what's done. And carry on listening to it, because without your support, it wouldn't be there.
No, I just want to say, Ken, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for giving up your time. Of course, keep safe, and you're welcome back anytime.
Well, that's so kind. Thank you very much, Matthew. And I hope the great service you're providing there at Reading carries on and continues and gets better and better.